Hello there. It's the first time I've tried one of these, but I'm going to try a patch from scratch out in the wilds, in this case the Blue Mountains near Boar's Head, which you'll probably see on the aerial shots if I get that far. I've got a bit of a do-it-yourself dead cat here. It's more of a dead bag, just because it is a little bit of wind on the mic, so we'll see how we go. So I'm going to talk through a patch as I make it from scratch. As you can see, nothing's patched apart from some of the stereo outputs going through the effects here, but nothing else is patched. This is a new rack I've got, which is a Tip-Top Audio Mantis rack with 35 modules in at the moment, and a few extra ones as well. In fact, I'm going to start with one, the Bifaco Pony VCO. So let's see how fast I can do this, and then what I'll do is separately record a performance so I can put that up separately. So yeah, this is an interesting oscillator which I'll use to start with. I'm going to patch its output through this looper, because one thing I want to do eventually is get some sequences from this overlapping with each other. So through the looper and then into an output up here. I'm going to start and hopefully get these patch leads sort of easy to get to, hopefully. So the output, I'm going to use Bloom as a sequencer for this Pony VCO, and that's going to go into the filter for octave, and I'm also going to take the gate of that, track 1 here, into an ADSR, the pip slope here, so that I can control, get the right lead, control the, that's not long enough, so I control the decay and the envelope. So the output of the pip slope goes into the VCA. Oh yeah, one of the reasons I got this Pony is because it's got a built-in VCA to allow me to do some shaping of the sound. And speaking of shaping of the sound as well, I'll actually add this in now. I'm going to put in the VCF, because one thing it hasn't got in it is a voltage controlled filter. So the output of that goes through the VCF and in there. So sequence, so we now need to clock the sequence, so I'm going to give it PAMS 2, I think, which is a 1 times clock into the Bloom, and then fingers crossed everything should be connected. Let's have a look. So we've got what else do we need? I think that's okay. Sorry, I had it in the CVN rather than the low pass output. So this is the Bloom playing the Pony VCO. So I'm going to put some sync delay on the whole piece using the FX8XL, and clock 6 I've got as the trigger for that. So this mixer here is going through this delay, and just where we're on the VCO, one thing I like about it is this timbre slider. So I'm on a sine wave at the moment, so moving the, I'm not sure of the volumes, so I'm going to have to adjust that as I go along. So that'll do as a start. Just drop the octave of that. The other thing I want is using the Disting. It's got a new FM engine. I forgot what it's called, FM Play or something. So I want a sort of growing chordal thing coming from that. So I'm going to use the Ornament and Crimes, the TB3PO, which is a sort of semi-generative module. So I'm going to use the CV out of that and it's quantized as well, so I can go straight in here. And it also has a gate, which will go into the disting as well. And then the output of the disting I'm going to take through the looper, another looper, and the 2HP loop, sort of on a different side. And then let's bring that back up into the mixer. So the only thing we now need is just to send a clock pulse to this ornament and crime, the CP30. And I want a sort of slowish clock, so I think I've got, let's have a look, I think 1 on 7, oh there we go. So this is set to a C minor pentatonic, 16 steps before it will repeat, and I've also got at the top here a scale thing which I've actually got, I can control with the CV, so I'm going to put a slow, using a small lead. I've got a series of LFOs here, so I'm going to put a slowish LFO, so this will change the, if you like, the pattern at regular intervals, which will always keep it fresh. So I've got the loopers going here. I'm going to set them both to Frippertronics mode, which means that after a certain point the previous loops will slowly die away, so it keeps it again fresh, always layering on top of each other. Just playing with bloom here. So what else was I going to do with this? Oh yeah, the other thing I can do is change using a CV here on the disting. I'm going to send it a random voltage to actually change the FM sound. So I've got a bank loaded in here of FM sounds, and this will change it so every certain amount of time it's going to update the sound. And I'm trying to remember which clock I should use. I've got various clocks set up already. So I'll use this number 5, which is a slowish clock, which I'm going to send to this random noise generator. So every, not sure what it's set, every seventh of normal beat, it should change the sound on here. So let's see if that works in a minute. Another sound I'm going to do some clever things with the looper in a second. Another sound I want is sort of, yeah, I think that disting's changing. Cool. Another sound I want is sort of a root fundamental running through this whole piece. So I'm going to use this quantizer, which I'll set to its lowest setting. Scale edit. So I'm going to use a C minor minus the B flat. So into there I'm going to have a Turing module, which, as you know, is a 2HP one here, which, as you know, is a semi-generative thing. So it's a bit of a rocky stand, this, so hopefully it doesn't fall over. So that's the Turing module, and then the output of that will have, I think I'll double it actually, so I'm just using a mort lead. I think we'll double it into the twin waves, which is like a stringy sound, through a filter. So I'm going to put it through this filter, which is handily right next to it, 2HP MMF, and then the output of that is ready to go into an output from the filter. I think I'll put in number 3. So there we go, that's the twin waves oscillator 2 being controlled by this quantizer. Now we just need to trigger the Turing machine. So if let's see what clock we should use. I think we'll use the same one that's triggering the change of sound, just to have some unified. So there we go. So that's now doing a C minor scale. I'm going to change the steps so that it's one step, one long. So the probability of it changing is every step. And now you can hear it working. I'm actually going to double that sound up to get a sub-bass version of it. So I'm going to use the mult here into the mini synth, which is a great little sub-bass machine. So going in there, infinite ADSR, or infinite sustain rather, and then the output from that into, I think we'll have it in, let's put it in number 1 here. So that's adding a sub-bass. So you can see I've built up 4 sounds quite quickly. The sequence, by the way, is a little boring at the moment. That's going to change and develop over time, as you'll see. I'm hoping it is. Right, a bit of rhythm. So we're not too far. The other side of this ornamental crime has got drum map on, which is a really simple way to get 2 sort of drum beats going. So I'm going to clock it from this very fast clock over here. It needs sort of 16ths running into it, and then we'll need to sync it up again in a second. So one of the outputs, it's a sort of what do you call it? I'll remember the name in a minute. It's a bit like a Turing 4 rhythm. So I'm connecting that to the 2 triggers of this Pico drum. So one of them is a sort of bass drum, one's a snare, I think. And then the output from that we'll have going into the mixer that's only reverb. So that way, whoops, just connected to the right output. That way we don't get any delay on it. So I'm just going to re-sync the whole piece. So that sounds in time. So let's just kill all the sounds. The other thing needs a bit of work on, apart from some modulation, is the 2 loops. What I want with these is for them to create a specified length, which just keeps repeating for both the Disting FM and for the Pony VCO. It's just a sequence. So that a clock here, number 8, which I've got set, starts the loop. Oops, where did that come from? Starts the loop, and then the same clock stops the loop. So it creates a master length, and then it keeps putting it into record, leaving a gap, if that makes sense. So I think the master one's about 20, 30, 40 seconds. So it'll do a master one, and then it'll just keep switching on, then off, then on as it goes through, each time layering up the previous piece. So for that I need a mult. So I'm going to take this slow clock out PAMS and then connect that into the trigger record input for both loopers. So it's a bit fiddly down here. So I'm just going to reset that. You can actually delete it. There we go. So it's not on at the moment, both sides. They're all set to record. I've got the mix of the loop out, so they are recording. So let's just listen to the. Sorry, I'm hitting the back here. Let's just listen to the loop side. Oops. Is that the wrong one? Oops, turn the wrong one off. So this is the VCO, the Pony VCO, going through the looper. I'll pan that a bit. The nice thing about the Pony is I can modulate it, and I've got these special attenuator leads now, which has got the attenuator built into half the lead. So I'm going to connect an LFO to the timbre, and then control the attenuation, so it'll even have a massive effect, well, full effect or not full effect. It's particularly good on the square wave version, obviously. So it's a sort of pulse width effect. That's pretty cool. And then the rate controlled from here. So let's turn that down. Let's just listen to any other things. So we've got the bass. Hello. We've got some visitors. So I've got the sub bass sound needing a bit of modulation, so I'm just going to get an LFO onto that. So I think I'll put that into the filter from this LFO up here. A bit fast.
Sorry mate, there's just a carving right behind you.
Is the what, sorry?
There's a carving in the rock.
Oh.
There's this round
cool.
ring here. And
Oh, that one, yeah.
Long-necked turtle. Just there. I just wanted to show some things.
Okay, no worries, yeah.
Sorry mate. You can see it well.
People looking at carvings in rocks. I'll put it on the video later just to explain what's going on here with these people. So there's the LFO on the filter on the sub bass, which I'll adjust as we get into the performance section. And just have a listen to the VCO waves, that could have some modulation. So I'm going to put that in, so it's got its own parameter in, put the twin waves VCO. So I'll do a slow phasing on that. The other thing is, of course, some reverb, which will bring this piece. It's sort of going to be an epic sort of ambient. That's a thing. Let's call things epic ambient. Sub bass and twin waves, and then we've got now hopefully a looped disting FM going on here. Let's see how that's doing. Sounding a bit subtle at the moment. So it doesn't sound... No, it does. Sound like it's changing fast enough, so I'm just going to double check the clock for that, number 7. It's very hard to see. In fact, impossible to see PAMs in the daylight, so I'm just going to live with it for now. I'm just changing on TB3PO the chances of a new sound wave happening. And then if you remember, I said we're going to have some random changes to the sound itself, so probably have to double check that the mappings are there. So this is a bit fiddly, but I'm now looking at the disting screen, which again is not brilliant. Mappings, CV mappings, and now just seeing if, whoops, the voice, let's go to voice 1, so it didn't save, which is annoying. Voice 1, I'm going to set to input 5. Sorry, this is a bit fiddly in the middle of nowhere. Let's make sure I've got 5, I think that's 5. Maybe 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that should change the sound now. There we go. Right, the other thing is just checking that the loops are going, and then we're almost ready for a performance. So I'll give you what I'll do is, there we go, so that's going to record now, capturing the disting. It's also capturing the bloom sequence, which is playing the Pony VCO. And what I'm going to do is kill the loops for now, so you can hear it from scratch. And we'll sort of play this in a mini performance, and I'll sort of stop the recording and then go into performance mode from scratch, hoping it's not going to rain. So there we go, we've got a bit of modulation on that. That's max modulation. So we'll start with that on the Bloom, which I don't know if you can see now because of all the leads. On Bloom, of course, we got control over a variety of things, including tempo. So I'll use that as performance later. And I've also got the ability, obviously, to bring notes in that weren't there. So we'll use that as a sort of start of the piece, and then I'll bring in the disting very quietly. Well, this is what I'll be doing on the performance. Where's the disting? So I'll pan the disting to one side and the sequence to the rest. Then I'll slowly bring in perhaps one of the roots. And I've got control of the filter of this one, so just tuning the Pony VCO. And a bit later on I can bring the sub when things get cooking a bit more. And then I've got a bit of rhythm here from the drums, which I remember I have got two. That's a sort of snare sound. I've also got a bass drum, a kick, that I can bring in when required. And then the sub. To be careful of the level of reverb, because I'm monitoring on headphones, obviously, because I'm on the edge of a cliff. Don't really want to be sort of have speakers here, because first of all it's hard to monitor with all the other sounds around, and also we've got people don't want to be disturbing and things. A bit of wind on the mic. So I think that's a good opportunity to sort of finish that as the patch from scratch. I could have, whoops, the wind's getting crazy, which is good because I've sort of finished speaking. The patch from scratch, there's probably a few more modulation things I would have done, and I would have introduced possibly some sound effects like wind noises and things like that, but this will do for now. So I'll cut the video here, and then hopefully that made sense, and then I'll do a performance, and then I'll have to do a little bit of B-roll, drones and things. So let's